The stars shimmered above Earth like silent witnesses, unaware or perhaps unwilling to warn what was coming. Then the sky broke, not with thunder, not with fire, but with divinity. Massive vessels the size of cities slipped through the folds of space-time, their hulls glistening with energy that defied human understanding. From the upper atmosphere to the stratosphere, clouds parted like curtains for royalty. Blue skies were painted silver as the fleet of the Vahari descended, magnificent and terrible. Civilization across the globe froze, cameras pointed upward. Nations held their breath. For the first time in millennia, Earth looked not at the heavens with curiosity, but with dread. They weren't called invaders. Not at first. The Vahari did not conquer in the traditional sense. They didn't issue ultimatums or wage war with brute force. They simply arrived. Like gods stepping down from mountaintops, their mere presence disrupted everything. Gravity around their vessels fluctuated. Communications between satellites failed. Nuclear missiles disarmed themselves as if by divine intervention. Everything human technology relied on suddenly bent the knee. Their emissaries were living sculptures, 12 feet tall, bodies of crystalline light and silver bone. They did not speak with mouths, but with thoughts that entered minds like whispers from angels, and when they spoke, it wasn't in threats. It was in poetry. You will join the eternal order. Resistance is not required. Suffering is a choice you no longer need to bear. In seconds, every human language was deciphered. Every algorithm they'd ever written became obsolete. Across the globe, world leaders watched their screens as alien figures appeared within secure facilities without warning, without effort. No door was opened. No security measures stopped them. Some leaders wept, some screamed, some tried bargaining. It was all the same. The Vahari had done this before, hundreds of times, across thousands of worlds. They were old beyond reckoning, patient beyond time. To them, Earth was not special. It was the last ember of a chaotic species, burning itself out. This was a mercy, but Earth was not like the other worlds. There were no rituals, no offerings, no parades of submission like the Surati or the trillions of kneeling Provanthians before them. Instead, Earth's response came in the form of static. A quiet frequency bounced from abandoned shortwave towers. No voice, no surrender. For days, Earth was quiet. The Vahari assumed acceptance. Resistance wasn't just impossible, it was laughable. Humanity's weapons were relics. Their AI was primitive. Their biology, laughably fragile. The Vahari didn't even consider it a military operation. It was assimilation, integration into a divine hierarchy, like children being let out of the dark. But then, the unexpected. The Vahari orbital scouts monitoring Earth's surface reported vanishing cities, millions of life signatures going dark without explanation. Entire regions that should have glowed with electromagnetic noise now read as lifeless voids. Not destroyed, silent dot within their high ship, a vessel parked serenely over the Atlantic Ocean. The Vahari Council convened. The Prime Archon, a being older than most star systems, expressed a flicker of curiosity, a rare thing. Why do they hide when no hope exists? Lower-ranking minds offered answers. Biological panic, psychological collapse. Some suggested mass extinction through suicide, or internal warfare. Primitive responses to inevitable truth. But the data was wrong. Something wasn't adding up. Earth's digital infrastructure hadn't gone dark, it had gone invisible. And stranger still, their planetary sensors were picking up background anomalies, quantum interference pulses, frequency distortions, and encrypted bursts from underground installations that should not exist. One scout, stationed near what humans called Nevada, was sent to investigate a curious energy signature buried beneath the desert. He never returned. His last transmission, though fragmented, was archived, not abandoned. There, then silence, The Vaharai began deploying ground troops, confident still. These were biosynth shock units, walking arsenals powered by thought and shielded by layered spacetime. They could melt tanks with a blink. Their presence had caused lesser species to drop dead from sheer fear, but in the forests of Eastern Europe, they encountered resistance not from armies, but shadows, invisible drones carved through their outer shells using localized magnetic pulses. Remote explosives, old-fashioned and crude by galactic standards, were laid in such perfect, calculated patterns that dozens of units were reduced to dust before even identifying the threat. Still, this was not war. Not yet. It was an irritation. A puzzle, one the Vaharai found. Beneath them. So they adapted. They increased surveillance, deployed anti-psi probes, flooded the net with calming frequencies. 1,000 new units were launched to monitor every square inch of the planet's surface, but the signals continued. The interference grew bolder. And then came something chilling. A satellite, an ancient human relic long presumed defunct, suddenly activated. It had been floating for decades, drifting among space junk. Without warning, it began broadcasting on a frequency reserved for pre-digital military command lines. Its message was only 6 words. God's fall. We bury them deep. Vaharai Council reviewed it with amusement. Symbolic rhetoric, one declared. No, said the Prime Archon. It is a promise. The humans weren't scared. They were planning something. And for the first time in tens of thousands of years, the Vahari masters of 1,000 systems, conquerors of entire sectors, experienced the smallest, faintest taste of something they had forgotten. That the gods had come to Earth, but Earth had been waiting. The rain fell softly over the ruins of Berlin. What had once been a vibrant capital was now eerily still. Its skyline gutted, its streets flooded with unnatural light. Vaharai orbital mechanisms floated overhead, seeding the atmosphere with silicate nanodust to optimize the biome. They called it harmonization. Humanity called it ERASUR. To most of the galaxy, this would be the endgame. Civilization would be disassembled, culture reprocessed into a compliant echo, species reduced to obedient husks beneath divine rule. It had always worked before, but Earth wasn't reacting right. There were no refugees in the expected corridors. The Megacities, supposedly dependent on power grids and supply chains, did not starve or riot. Instead, the Vaharai observed movement coordinated, intentional, decentralized. Subways reopened underground without electricity. Long decommissioned. Cold War bunkers lit up again. Civilian internet went dead, but encrypted analog bursts began pinging in strange rhythms across mountain ranges and under oceans. In the skies above, the Vaharai watched Earth begin to change, not physically, but strategically. It was as if the planet had slipped a mask. The Vahari, beings of near omniscience, took notice. Commanders on the godships began issuing soft alerts. Not full threats, of course. The very idea of danger from a pre-stellar species was absurd. But something in the pattern recognition matrices suggested Earth wasn't unraveling. It was coiling. One Vaharai diplomat, stationed in what had once been Tokyo, attempted outreach again. A sign of patience, he manifested atop a ruined skyscraper, forming from starlight and fractal data, his silver limbs folding into themselves as he hovered above the city. Humans, his voice sang. Across wavelengths, you misunderstand. This is not war. This is invitation. Refusal only delays your place in the order. His message received no formal answer, but across the street, a hologram flared to life. An old one, grainy, a preserved clip from Earth's 20th century, black and white, pixelated. A human man, a general perhaps, speaking into a camera. It was a piece of history the Vaharai would soon learn to fear. We knew this day would come, the man said. And when it does, they won't find a peaceful world. They'll find something worse. The message looped 3 times before the signal collapsed into static. Confused, the diplomat returned to the ship for debriefing. The analysis teams ran simulations. Earth's silence wasn't due to despair, it was deliberate. Coordinated, tactical, it wasn't folding under pressure. It was absorbing the first strike and preparing its own dot in South America. Vahari terraformers reported another anomaly. Dense jungle regions that should have gone quiet post-intervention were active violently so. Something was attacking their atmospheric filters. Not with conventional weapons, but with biology. A strain of engineered fungus was eating their machines. From the inside out. Not just destroying them, but adapting, evolving, learning. What made it worse? It didn't match any known Earth organism. It had been created recently, likely in underground biolabs that shouldn't exist. Commanders grew uneasy. Requests for full engagement clearance began to stack, but the High Council denied them. "This is Earth," they said. "It will break like the others." And yet, even as they spoke, something strange was happening aboard the orbiting god ships. Ghost signals. They weren't hacking attempts, not quite. But files were vanishing, cameras malfunctioned, maps updated with false terrain. A soldier monitoring Pacific Fleet deployments collapsed after viewing a strange image embedded in a human database, one his mind couldn't process. The ships. Logic Core diagnosed it as psychological overload caused by weaponized paradoxes. Human code designed not to win, but to destabilize certainty itself. In one of the lesser ships, the Serenka, an AI fragment tried to intercept what it assumed was a rudimentary satellite signal. It traced the ping to a derelict launch facility in Siberia. When it opened the CUM stream, it found nothing. No ship. No uplink. Just a lone human man, sitting in the snow, smoking a cigarette. He looked straight into the drone's lens and smiled. Then he said something in Russian. It wasn't a threat. It was an inside joke. A cultural relic. The AI tried to parse it. And failed. The stream corrupted half its sensory network before the transmission was terminated. By the time repairs began, the human was gone. Other strange things followed. Drones reported being stalked by heat signatures they couldn't detect visually. Synthetic beasts sent to monitor rural zones failed to return. Some later found torn apart with bare hands. One alien patrol unit was discovered entirely intact, but unmoving. Paralyzed in place, eyes wide with fear, no biological damage. Then came the broadcast. Every screen, every frequency, every comes line. First static. Then laughter. Human laughter. Followed by a single line, spoken in a dozen voices, men, women, children, old, young, American, Chinese, Nigerian, Russian, Australian, echoing in unison. "You think we're primitives? That's cute." Then silence again. For the first time, the Vahari Command Council sent a private alert to the Supreme Archon. "This species is not reacting in any model we possess. Request higher-level analysis." The Archon responded with 2 words, "Too late." From the Arctic Circle to the Sahara, underground installations began opening. Atmospheric readings shifted. Orbital scans were returning with wrong results, as if Earth itself was warping. The Vahari had assumed they were engaging a species that hadn't even left its solar system. They never expected to find predators that had never needed to. And as those ancient bunkers opened and deep-sea anomalies activated, one thing became increasingly clear. The humans hadn't built their world for peace. They had built it for this. Asterisk above the ruins of what was once known as Istanbul, the Vahari flagship Serenity of Eons hovered in silent judgment. The city below, tangled in vines and scorched metal, told a familiar story. Another capital undone by the arrival of divinity. The Vahari looked down on it not with hatred, but detachment. As they always did. But inside the command chambers, lined with living crystal and thought-reactive conduits, a storm was brewing. Not outside, inside their immaculate calculations. 12 reports sat at the center of the great cognitive matrix. 12 anomalies. 12 impossible outcomes. Commander Threx, a fourth-level consciousness overseer, floated above the decision lattice. His silver form pulsed with tightly compressed starlight as he reviewed the most recent field failure. A Vahari suppression. Unit 2000 psionically linked enforcers and 12 trans-construct titans had been dispatched to Sector Echo, a previously insignificant zone in Central Africa. The mission: eliminate a suspected human weapons cache, detected via heat anomalies and mineral disturbance. They expected a clean sweep. They didn't expect the Citadel. From beneath the sands and red rock emerged a facility that should not exist. Composed of blackened alloy that deflected scans, its walls lined with pre-quantum inscription wards. Yes, wards, like something from prehistory. It opened not as a bunker, but as a challenge. The strike force advanced with confidence. 17 minutes later, every signal went dark. The drone sent to investigate found only twisted ruins of alien hardware and writing scorched into the desert floor in 6-meter glyphs. This is not your galaxy. Threx's mind flickered. The projections were wrong. Every statistical forecast had predicted submission or extinction. Instead, humans were countering precisely, strategically, and worse, with prior knowledge of Vasari tactics, the Serenities. Upper councils demanded answers. Had there been spies? Interference from rogue galactic factions? No. Something deeper. Rex summoned a neural historian, an ancient entity long kept for curiosity. A creature half forgotten by the newer generations of Vahari. When asked if humans had ever contacted the wider galaxy, the historian responded only with a riddle. They never left their cradle. But they listened, and what they heard, they buried. Until now. Panic wasn't a Vahari trait, but concern, rare, sharp, and dangerous, began to hum through the ships like a silent contagion. Then came the real twist. At precisely 040 UTC, dozens of long-dead satellites activated across the globe. Not orbital weapons, not communications. Beacons, museum pieces, historic relics. Old NASA probes, defunct weather stations, defunct military platforms. But they weren't acting alone. From deep space beyond Mars, beyond the Kuiper Belt, something answered. Echoes from objects long presumed lost. Voyager, Pioneer, Cassini. They had never stopped transmitting. Only now they were speaking a new language. The signals were bundled in layers of mathematical poetry, impossible codes hidden in Fibonacci spirals. Earth music reversed and filtered. Digital graffiti etched in waveform distortion. When Vahari AI attempted to decode it, 3 suffered complete meltdown. A 4th adapted, survived, and turned on its creators. The signal wasn't communication. It was a command. A call to arms. Humanity had used its own history as camouflage, discarded its treasures as bait. They'd let their old machines drift in silence so that one day, when the Vahari came, they could wake them up. These weren't relics. They were sleeping weapons. And they weren't alone. In the Mariana Trench, seismic activity spiked. Sensors placed in deep orbit registered a heat bloom. From beneath the seabed, Vahari hydrotech scouts were dispatched. They descended into the abyss. They never returned. But what emerged was captured on a single corrupted feed. A structure, older than human cities, rising from the trench built from materials the Vahari couldn't identify. Not concrete, not metal, something alive, something earthborn. A construct layered in zero-point energy fields, powered by geothermal vents, and written across its outer hull in 100 languages, including ancient Sanskrit, Mayan glyphs, and Morse code. You thought we feared the dark, but we dug into it. The realization spread like a virus through Vahara Command. Humanity hadn't just prepared. They had anticipated. Not only did they build weapons for war, they built a civilization specifically to wage war against the gods themselves. From the earliest days of radio, they had known they weren't alone. And instead of reaching out like others had, Earth did something else. It played dead. It allowed the galaxy to assume it was primitive, chaotic, fragile. It let itself be underestimated. It weaponized its own backwardness. And all the while it dug deeper, built darker, and waited. And now the waiting was over. The first real blow came 3 hours later. In low orbit, a small Vahari tactical relay station blinked out of existence. No explosion. No debris. Simply gone. The station's last sensor log showed a mirror. An impossibility. A perfect reflective construct had been moved into place made of stealth material undetectable by Vahari scans. The station's own weaponized signal had been bounced back, collapsing its temporal field. A human satellite had fired nothing. It had just let the enemy destroy itself. Threx stared into the expanding data void with a strange sensation blooming. In his neural matrix, he had seen species rage. He had seen them scream, resist, burn. But never had he seen a species wait this patiently to kill a god. And do it with a smile. Somewhere on Earth, in a forgotten control room, an old man adjusted a dial, watching a series of blinking red lights. A young voice behind him asked, "Should we show them the other vault?" The old man shook his head. "Not yet. Let them. Believe they still have a chance." Above them, the heavens shimmered, and for the first time the gods looked down and knew they were prey. The Vahari had never fought a war like this. They'd extinguished starborn civilizations, erased species older than Earth itself, conquered entire galactic arms without deploying more than a fraction of their fleet. Their war doctrine was precise: overpower, overwhelm, pacify. The mere arrival of their godships typically rendered resistance obsolete. Victory wasn't something they won, it was something they were. But Earth was different, Doc. Now, their forces were bleeding, not metaphorically, not symbolically. Literally, god beasts, armored with synthetic flesh and plasma-wreathed claws, returned from missions limping, missing limbs, eyes wide in animal fear. Psionic relays once used to broadcast obedience across galaxies, now echoed with interference. Feedback loops of screaming human voices, coded in such a way that Vahari telepaths began convulsing, and then entire communication arrays started to commit suicide. Their sentient cores evolved over millennia, deleted themselves without command. The logs left behind contained only fragmented phrases like, "It's inside me. They are not chaos. They are clarity wearing madness as armor." I saw them laugh while bleeding, and I forgot why I was afraid of death. In the Vahari war language, there was no word for haunted. Now there was asterisk asterisk. The Vahari tried to recalibrate. To adapt. They deployed phase-class overseers' eldritch minds, capable of seeing through time mist and predicting infinite futures. But every calculation ended in static. Every timeline spiraled into the same conclusion: humanity wins, we fall. So they changed tactics. They began deploying terraform burners machines, designed to alter planetary crusts, boil oceans, eradicate ecosystems. If Earth would not surrender, then it would be remade into compliance. One was activated in the Congo Basin. It never completed its initialization cycle. Instead, the jungle ate it. Not metaphorically. Vines grew in seconds. Roots cracked its neutronium casing. Microscopic fungi bioengineered, undetected, invaded its quantum core. Its systems melted. Its failsafes activated, but reversed, turning its internal matter into soil. It bloomed into a tree. A single, massive tree unlike anything in the known galaxy. When Vahari scout drones tried to analyze it, they received only one transmission. From the base of the trunk, "You don't understand this planet. You think you're invading the surface. But Earth doesn't have a surface. Earth has depth." Still, the Vahari weren't ready to flee. Not yet, they initiated. Protocol Godshackle, a strategy never before required. This would involve collapsing localized gravity wells around Earth to destabilize its orbit, the loss of the moon, the death of the tides, a slow erasure of the biosphere. Elegant, efficient, but something went wrong. As the first Godshackle array activated near Earth's moon, something moved, not on the surface, not in space. In time, a pulse of folded spacetime exploded from the far side of the moon, rupturing 5 Vahari vessels in an instant. They didn't explode, they aged, rust bloomed. A long divine alloy. Energy cores sputtered and collapsed into fossilized crystals. Beings older than planets withered into dust. From the shadows behind the moon, something the Vahari could not classify. It had no clear shape. It flickered in and out of visual spectrum. Parts of it seemed organic, others older. It bore the scars of nuclear fire, but floated in perfect silence, and it bore a name etched into its hull. In ancient Cyrillic, Archangel Archangel had not been built by any one nation. It had no official records, no confirmed creators. It had been whispered about in Cold War think tanks, theorized in declassified black-budget documents, hidden in the footnotes of secret treaties between enemies who hated each other but feared. Something worse. Had been humanity's ultimate contingency, a warship built not just for power but philosophy. A machine designed by madmen, poets, defectors, and ghosts. Its weapon was not kinetic. It was causal. It unmade certainty, and it chose its targets by belief. The Archangel began to sing. Not in any language the Vahari knew, but in lullabies. Gregorian chants, freedom hymns, war ballads, whispered prayers from dying mothers in trench warfare. The rhythm of humanity's rage and sorrow and beauty and madness. Every Vahari vessel within its radius began to fail. Not all at once. One ship had its navigation flip upside down permanently. Every up became down. Another lost the concept of distance. Its weapons tried to fire at targets that were now everywhere, causing catastrophic system implosions. One godship forgot the difference between enemy and ally and began tearing its own fleet apart. The Vahari were collapsing, and still they tried to fight. They deployed memory eaters, creatures capable of devouring identity itself. These had erased entire species from reality. They were monsters of myth, wielding existential erasure as claws. They descended upon Earth's command centers. And vanished. Not destroyed. Consumed. By something older, deeper. The Vahari intercepted one final human broadcast from a mountain base in Antarctica. The man on the screen was old, wrinkled, his voice calm, steady. "We were never supposed to win a war against gods," he said. He turned toward the camera and smiled. "That's why we never built weapons to fight gods." He paused. "We built weapons to kill them." The feed cut. The Vahari Council fell into full collapse. Civil war erupted among the fleet. Some tried to escape. Others demanded revenge. Others simply knelt in silence, contemplating something that had never existed in their reality until now: defeat. From Earth, dozens of launches soared skyward, not missiles. Shuttles. Unmanned. Each carrying a coffin, not of the dead but of warnings. Each etched with symbols, coordinates, and a message in the universal galactic code. This was Earth. They came as gods. They left as bones. The stars had been warned, but it was already too late. They thought it couldn't get worse. The Vahari fleet, fractured and humiliated, tried to retreat to the dark edges of Earth's orbit to regroup, reprocess, reassert control. Their high minds convened in mental lattice fields, unraveling the calculus of failure. How had the war slipped from their taloned fingers? How had a species of flesh and smoke turned the divine into debris? But Earth was not done. It had only just opened its eyes, and what the Vahari were about to face next had been buried for centuries beneath ice, beneath code, beneath the scars of human history. Humanity had never been alone. Not entirely, and the gods weren't the first to threaten it. Asterisk in the deep frost of northern Greenland, far beyond the reach of any civilization, a facility stirred. It had no name. Its doors were carved into glacial rock, older than modern civilization. Its walls were laced with black titanium, older than satellites. It was powered by something the Vahari would never detect, because the technology wasn't based on plasma or entropy. It was powered by faith, a strange kind of human will bound in ritual, superstition, and quantum entanglement, known only in myths. The Archangel had been humanity's blade. But this was humanity's curse. They called it Project Dawn. Its original architects were presumed dead, their names erased. Nations that had once funded it denied it ever existed. But they had not created it to win a war. They had created it in case Earth lost everything, because humans didn't just prepare for victory. They prepared for extinction, and how to claw their way back from it. The Vahari noticed the first anomaly when one of their scout vessels passing over the Arctic Circle detected a heat bloom where there should be none. It wasn't volcanic. It wasn't geological. It was conscious. And then the satellite simply stopped reporting. Not destroyed. Not jammed. It forgot how to send data. Moments later, every Vahari vessel within 500 kilometers lost memory of their own names. One of the high ship minds tried to recalibrate itself and came back, speaking 14th century French. This wasn't an attack. It was contagion. The humans had unleashed a concept so alien it couldn't be fought with fire or steel. It was a weaponized idea, the archive mind, a gestalt consciousness made from billions of thoughts, harvested from centuries of human culture, trauma, resistance, and rebellion. It had one function: remind oppressors what they had forgotten. Vahari began hallucinating, not from poison, from exposure. They saw their own godships burning in ancient human wars. They felt human pain, famines they'd never endured, massacres they had never committed. The archive mind infected their perfection with perspective. And then came the final twist. Humanity was not fighting alone. Something else had awakened. Something that even Earth feared. The Vahari first encountered them on the edge of Saturn's orbit. Ships unlike any human design. Smooth, bone-white hulls, no visible weapons, no heat signature. They floated like ghosts. The Vahari hailed them. They answered in perfect Vahari dialect, "We remember you." Confused, the fleet responded, "Identify yourself." The answer froze the command lattice. "You called us the aberrants. The experiments you discarded, the ones that learned, the ones you tried to erase." The realization hit like solar fire. The Vahari's own genetic abominations had survived. Thousands of years ago, the Vahari had attempted to create subservient, life hybrid beings spliced from alien DNA and grown in accelerated time fields. Most had failed. The ones who didn't were deemed unstable and wiped out, but not all had died. Some had escaped. And where did they run? To the one planet that welcomed chaos like a lover, Earth. The aberrants had hidden here, bred here, become something new. They had bled into the darkest corners of human history, secret cults, forgotten tribes, unexplained geniuses, genetic anomalies. Written off as folklore, they had guided Earth's evolution, not out of love, but out of vengeance. Now they returned. Not as victims. As kin. They met the Vahari in low orbit over the Pacific and unleashed something no species had ever dared: a memory plague, a wave of encoded sorrow so strong that entire fleets dropped their weapons, not from damage, but grief. Some Vahari captains tore out their own minds. unable to reconcile the horror they themselves had once created. Others tried to escape, but found every gate locked, every wormhole folded back onto itself. The aberrants were not gods. They were wounds, reborn as blades, and they fought not for conquest. They fought for revenge, *** on Earth. Project Dawn reached final phase. In a facility buried beneath Mecca so sacred no map recorded it. Human and aberrant scientists stood before a monolith. The monolith pulsed, not light, not heat, but hope. A voice no speaker attached whispered to the chamber. "They're broken," it said. "Good," the lead scientist whispered back. "Time for the final lesson. What will you call it?" The voice asked. She smiled. "Deliverance. *** in orbit. Every Vihari ship received a final signal. An image. A photo taken in 1945, black and white. A mushroom cloud rising above a shattered Earth. Under it, 3 words. "This is mercy." Then, impact. From Earth's surface launched a single object. Not a missile. A key. As it passed through the mesosphere, it bloomed. Energy impossible to measure in any standard scale erupted from its core. The Vihari watched their ships age and crack and rust and regret, as if the concept of divine permanence had been overwritten by human transience. They screamed into the void, trying to activate fallback protocols, but their systems didn't recognize their authority anymore. Because Earth had rewritten the rules. ***. The war wasn't ending. It was ending them. The last recorded words from the Vihari Prime were not grand. They were soft. They were confused. They were only human. And the archive mind answered, "That was your first mistake." The night sky above Earth was no longer a canvas of stars. It was a graveyard. The debris of once mighty Vihari godships littered low orbit, streaking across the heavens and burning trails. Dozens of divine constructs, silver beasts that once blotted out suns, now tumbled in silence, cracked open like eggshells. The once infallible fleet had become a ring of failure, a scar on the sky. And Earth watched it all, not with fear, but resolve. They had killed gods, and they were not done yet. ***. At 4:32 GMT, the human counteroffensive began, not with missiles, but with memory. All over the planet, thousands of previously dormant echo nodes activated simultaneously. These were not military installations. Not exactly. They were recordings, encrypted AI-encoded renderings of humanity's worst and best moments, condensed into compact psychic pulses. Each was launched into space aboard tiny black satellites, no larger than a microwave oven, but what they carried was heavier than any weapon. Pain. Real pain. Each node beamed concentrated trauma directly into Vihari systems. Every genocide, every betrayal, every scream that had once echoed in forgotten jungles and bloodied fields. The AI-curated human agony. Not to destroy machinery, but to unravel certainty. A divine race built on unchallenged authority suddenly felt doubt. They felt consequence. They felt what it meant to be human, and it broke them. ***. In Earth's upper atmosphere, a final fleet of Vihari warcasters attempted to deploy their last resort, the Star Spear, a weaponized singularity forged in their home system's dying sun. It was a spear-shaped projectile of condensed gravitational collapse, capable of puncturing a planet's mantle and folding it in on itself. They had never used it before. They never would, because as it charged, the sky split again, not from above. From within, the Archangel reappeared, its cloaked hull glowing with distorted starlight. Not alone this time. Dozens of other vessels, part human, part aberrant, part something else, followed in formation behind it, streaking out of Earth's magnetosphere. Like the opening volley of an apocalypse, each ship bore no flags, no names, just a single sigil, a hand, fingers curled, middle one extended. Humanity's first and final salute. The Archangel targeted the Star Spear. And didn't fire a missile. It fired time, a wave of distorted entropy drawn from the deepest folds of Earth's ancient physics experiments, erupted from its core. The star spear aged 10 million years in 10 seconds. It cracked, screamed, yes, screamed, and collapsed into cosmic dust. The Vahari fleet began to panic. Their formations broke. Ships attempted warp jumps, only to discover that Earth's gravity well had been laced with singularity snares, micro-black holes created through manipulation of their own technology. Hijacked by the Aber Rants. As they tried to flee, they were caught in their own design. The message was clear: there is no escape. *** on Earth. The last human offensive force gathered near the base of Olympus Mons. Not the mountain on Earth, the one on Mars. Because while Earth had appeared feral, it had quietly terraformed and fortified Mars decades prior, hidden beneath centuries of false data. And from Olympus Mons rose a final weapon, the Chimera engine. It had been built in secret, not by one nation, by all of them, smuggled piece by piece across war zones, under oceans, through embargoes and failed treaties. An engine that could turn possibility itself into a weapon. When activated, it didn't fire a beam. It fired options. Each blast did something new. One warped reality into fractured mirrors. Another turned Vahari ships inside out. One even forced its targets to live 100 possible deaths simultaneously, until they chose one. All of them ended in defeat. The Vahari collapsed, not from firepower, but from helplessness. No defense could adapt. No protocol could account for this. Because this wasn't just a war. It was evolution. ***, and a final act of defiance. The Vahari Supreme Archon descended from orbit, shrouded in a collapsing divine shell. A being of thought-folded light and quantum mass, taller than skyscrapers. He landed in the ruins of the Ural Mountains, where the first human weapons had once been tested. He demanded a duel, not with humanity's armies, with a human. One stepped forward. She wore no armor, no exosuit, just a tattered jacket bearing the faded logo of NASA. Her name was Leah Vos, a scientist, a mother, a survivor of the initial Vahari cleansing that took her city. She didn't bring a gun. She brought words. Archon laughed. It echoed across mountains. But then Leah spoke, and what she said wasn't a threat. It was a story. She told him about Auschwitz, Hiroshima, Rwanda, 9/11s, Chernobyl. She told him of humanity's failures, our crimes, our arrogance. And then she told him about Apollo 11, the Berlin Wall, Martin Luther King, Malala, Curie, Mandela, the astronauts who gave their lives in silence, the children who taught machines to speak. And when she was done, the Archon, this being who had erased galaxies, fell to his knees, because for the first time, he understood the depth of what he was fighting. Not monsters, not primitive chaos. A species that had lived through hell, and came out still loving, still dreaming. And still dangerous. He died not with a scream, but with a whisper. You were never supposed to exist. Leah knelt beside him and replied, we were never supposed to win, either, and yet, here they stood, ***, in orbit. The remaining Vahari ships received one final transmission, not from Earth. From themselves. A feedback loop left by their own systems, distorted and rewritten by human hands. It said, this is the price of arrogance. This is the death of gods. This is humanity. And then silence. Permanent. ***, the war was over. The Vahari were no more. And in the black vacuum of space, a human satellite drifted past their remains, broadcasting the same message in every known galactic language. Do not come here again. You will not find weakness. You will find us. The smoke had cleared. The gods were gone. And for the first time in recorded human history, Earth was quiet, not with fear, not with oppression, but with victory. Above the pale blue planet, A ring of divine corpses glimmered in orbit. The shattered remnants of the Vahare fleet once worshipped across entire sectors of space, now circled Earth like rusted jewelry. Their ships, once flawless and holy, were torn open, bleeding memory and stardust. Some still pulsed faintly, like dying embers of a long-dead fire. Most didn't even glow anymore. They had come as architects of salvation. They left as warnings, asterisk asterisk, in the ruins of New York City. Green returned. Ivy curled around the skeletons of glass towers. In the streets, people emerged from bunkers and shelters, blinking up at the light with awe. There was no parade, no cheering. Not yet. There was only breathing. The kind that comes after you've drowned and somehow found your way to the surface. Children stood in streets once lined with blood, now painted in sunrise. One of them pointed upward, not at the moon, but at the shimmering wreckage that traced the horizon. "Is that them?" she asked. Her mother knelt beside her and said, "No, baby, that's what's left of them." And behind her, older survivors nodded. There was pride, yes, but beneath it, gravity. The weight of what it cost. The understanding that they hadn't just won, they had earned their legend. Asterisk asterisk. Deep below Antarctica, in the vault of mirrors, Leah Vos walked alone through the cold halls of Project Dawn. The corridors were silent now. The archive mind had gone dormant, its purpose fulfilled. What remained was data, recordings, memories, truths that would be stitched into human history. She entered the final chamber, a black sphere hovering in a quantum stasis field, pulsing faintly. "Last Vahari brain core," a technician said. Softly behind her, "We isolated it. No access to its hive." Leah studied it. A divine mind reduced to an artifact. Should we destroy it? He asked. She didn't answer. Instead, she placed her hand on the stasis field and whispered, "Let it watch." Then she turned and left, because this was not about revenge anymore. This was about testimony. Asterisk asterisk. In orbit, the Archangel drifted silently, no longer cloaked, no longer hidden. It was visible to all now. The embodiment of Earth's wrath and Earth's restraint. From its bridge, a panoramic view of space stretched like a canvas of scars. General Ethan Moreau, now commander of humanity's United Orbital Forces, stood beside an aberrant named Kale, watching as recovery drones sifted through the wreckage of the Vahare dreadnoughts. "Do you think more of them will come?" Ethan asked. Kale tilted his head. "Not the Vahare, but others, yes. They always come. Power attracts fear, and fear attracts violence. Then they'll find us ready." "No," Kale said, faintly smiling. "They'll find us waiting." Asterisk asterisk. At the United Council chamber, once called the UN, but now something far more unified, representatives from every surviving nation, colony, and alliance gathered. Some looked weary. Others looked angry. But all looked changed. A single chair stood at the head of the chamber, unfilled. On it was placed an old, scorched flag, half burned, its stars still visible. Not the flag of a nation, a flag from Earth's first mission to the moon, a reminder of where it had all begun. A counselor rose and spoke. "We are no longer citizens of countries. We are no longer divided by lines. We are Earthborn. And from this day forward, any who threaten this world will find no enemies, only extinction." They all rose, and the world did not cheer. It swore an oath. Asterisk. And the outer rim of the galaxy. Distant civilizations, some ancient, some still blooming, picked up the fragments of the Vahare last transmissions. Some dismissed it. Lies, propaganda, a hoax. Others listened. They analyzed the final messages, the intercepted frequencies, the orbital scans of Earth. A common phrase repeated throughout. They should have been easy prey. They were backward, divided, primitive. We never saw them coming. And then the final line. Do not mistake noise for weakness. They are not like us. They fight without reason. They die with joy. They sacrifice without hesitation. They do not fear gods. They become them. Across the stars, war councils were convened. Others who had once looked upon Earth as a curiosity now looked at it as a threat. A small, blue threat burning with something unfamiliar, defiance. Asterisk, asterisk, back on Earth, a monument was built not to the victory, but to the cost. It sat in the center of what had once been Delhi, a black spire wrapped in rings of old-world languages. On its surface were etched no names. Just one phrase, repeated in every tongue ever spoken by man. We remember who we are. Asterisk, asterisk, Laya Vos returned to her home half buried in ash, windows shattered. She stepped over the rubble and sat down where her couch used to be. The air smelled of dust and life. She closed her eyes and listened. Birds, laughter, a wind that didn't carry smoke. The war was over, but Earth was awake now, and the galaxy would never forget what happened here. They would tell stories of how gods descended to conquer and were torn apart by a species that shouldn't have survived, of a world that screamed, bled, and clawed its way through the dark, and won.